The fuel gauge needle crept steadily towards the red line, like a silent curse in the pitch-black night. The rain showed no sign of stopping, each heavy drop slamming against the windshield, blurring everything around me. The national highway was deserted. Only the labored rumble of my old truck's engine kept me company. For nearly an hour, I hadn't seen a single light, not a sign of life. Anxiety began to gnaw at my mind, not just because I was running out of fuel but also because of the feeling of utter solitude and unease in this vast darkness. Then, like a miracle in the depths of despair, I saw a faint light in the distance. The closer I got, the clearer the light became, revealing the silhouette of an old gas station, tucked away behind towering waterlogged trees. A weak yellow light spilled from the grimy windows, creating a scene that was both desolate and subtly eerie. With no other options, I steered the truck onto the road leading to the gas station. The first sensation as I stepped out was the cold and dampness. The smell of gasoline mixed with a raw, earthy odor assaulted my nostrils, almost suffocatingly unpleasant. The entire gas station seemed enveloped in a terrifying stillness, broken only by the steady drumming of rain on the dilapidated corrugated iron roof. Entering the small convenience store next to the pumps, I saw a man standing behind the counter. He had a peculiar appearance, a gaunt face with a smile that seemed permanently etched onto his lips. It wasn't a cheerful smile, but rather something artificial, even a little frightening. His eyes were small and deep-set, staring at me intently as if trying to read my very soul. "Welcome," he said, his voice thin and drawn out, the smile never wavering. "A beautiful night, isn't it?" A shiver ran down my spine. With this storm raging, how could he call it beautiful? "Yes. I need to fill up my tank," I managed, trying to keep my voice even. "Excellent," the attendant replied, the strange smile still fixed on his face. "Our fuel here is always fresh, as if it's just been drawn from the earth." I didn't understand what he meant, but I didn't want to ask too many questions. I just wanted to quickly get gas and leave this strange place. While the attendant fiddled with the old pump, I took the opportunity to look around the store. The shelves were sparsely stocked, covered in a thick layer of dust. The instant noodle packets and soda cans looked so old they could have been there for decades. The damp and cold air made me feel uneasy. When the tank was full, I paid the attendant. He took the money slowly, his thin fingers caressing the old, crumpled bills. "Have a safe journey," he said, the smile still unwavering. "Remember to stop by again. We're always here, waiting." His last sentence sent a chill down my spine. I quickly got back into my truck, started the engine, and drove away as fast as I could. Looking in the rearview mirror, the gas station was still there, its weak yellow light shining through the rain. But after driving quite a distance, I glanced in the rearview mirror again. This time I was jolted with terror. The gas station was gone. The road behind me was completely empty, only the pitch-black night and the tall, waterlogged trees remained. Not a trace, not a single light. It was as if the gas station had never existed. I slammed on the brakes, pulling over to the side of the road. My heart pounded in my chest. What had just happened? I couldn't believe my eyes. A gas station that size, how could it vanish in an instant? In the days that followed, every time I had a delivery route that took me down that road, I couldn't help but curiously look to my right. And every time the old gas station would reappear before my eyes, its weak yellow light flickering in the darkness. What was even more terrifying was that every time I would see another truck stop there, and a figure walking into the convenience store. I tried to tell this story to other truck drivers, but they all thought I was hallucinating from driving too much. They laughed at me, told me I should see a doctor. But I know I wasn't making it up. I saw that gas station with my own eyes, and its bizarre disappearance still haunts me to this day. Every time I drive past that stretch of road, I try not to look in the rearview mirror. I'm afraid of the moment the gas station disappears, afraid of the attendant's grotesque smile, and even more afraid of the other truck drivers who might also be lost in a place that isn't real, a gas station that doesn't exist, a time trap, or a doorway to another world that I never want to explore. I'm a long-haul truck driver. My job forces me to drive through the night, traversing deserted roads, sometimes for hundreds of miles without seeing another soul. I used to think I was fearless, but until one day, the things I encountered changed me forever. That night, the storm seemed intent on swallowing the entire world. Rain lashed against the windshield, thunder roared, tearing through the darkness, and the rare streetlights flickered like the eyes of ghostly will-o'-the-wisps. I, an old truck driver, was wrestling with the steering wheel, hoping to escape this weather hell soon and get back to my wife and children. Suddenly, amidst the flickering headlights, I saw a figure standing by the side of the road. A woman. In a faded, dark gray raincoat, her figure was small and huddled, like a wet leaf. Her head was bowed low, her long black hair hanging down, obscuring her face. The rain was coming down so hard, I thought for a moment she must have had an accident. The compassion of someone who had experienced countless night trips welled up within me, even though a sense of unease lingered in my gut. I hit the brakes, the truck groaning to a stop in the blinding white rain. Rolling down the window, a blast of icy air hit my face, carrying the pungent smell of damp earth and moisture. "Ma'am, do you need any help?" My voice was lost in the sound of the rain and wind. The woman slowly raised her head. Her wet hair clung to her pale face, but I caught a glimpse of deep black eyes devoid of any light. Her gaze was so cold and empty that a chill suddenly ran down my spine. She gave a slight nod, a slow and heavy movement. Without a word, she opened the truck door and sat in the passenger seat. Her old raincoat dripped onto the floor, forming puddles. For the rest of the journey, the cabin was filled with a terrifying silence. The sound of rain pattering on the roof, the wind whistling through the door cracks, and the low rumble of the engine only amplified the feeling of isolation. I glanced over. The woman sat as still as a statue, her eyes fixed straight ahead, lifeless. I tried to make conversation a few times, asking where she wanted to go, where she lived, but all I received in return was an unnerving silence. Finally, after a long, suffocating silence, she spoke softly. Her voice was as light as a breath, but it carried a chilling, eerie tone. "Stop, before it's too late." I was startled and instinctively slammed on the brakes. The truck lurched, throwing me forward. "Ma'am, what are you talking about?" I turned to ask, an indescribable anxiety rising within me. Too late for what? But the passenger seat was empty. I rubbed my eyes, not believing what I had just seen. She had been sitting right here next to me just moments ago. How could she have disappeared so quickly? The truck doors were still locked, with no sign of being opened. My heart pounded in my chest. I shivered, a coldness spreading through my body. My eyes involuntarily fell to the passenger seat. Water droplets were still clearly visible on the leather, where she had just been sitting. Cold and terrifying water droplets. I quickly started the engine, pressing the accelerator and speeding off into the storm. The more I thought about what had just happened, the more my hair stood on end. The woman's words echoed in my ears, "Stop, before it's too late." Too late for what? When I reached the nearest town, I pulled into a roadside diner, determined to tell someone what had happened. The owner, a kind-looking middle-aged woman, was wiping down the counter. I ordered a hot coffee and recounted the entire story of what had just occurred on the road. When the diner owner finished listening, her eyes widened, her face filled with horror. She slammed the cleaning cloth down on the counter, her voice trembling. You said the girl was wearing a gray raincoat with long hair covering her face?" I nodded, still shaken. "Oh dear God." The diner owner took a step back, clutching her chest. "It's been so many years since I've heard that story." "What do you mean?" I asked urgently, a sense of foreboding washing over me. "Do you remember that stretch of road you were just on? The one where accidents often happen," the diner owner said, her voice filled with fear. I nodded, vaguely recalling that dark and slippery section of the highway. 10 years ago, on a stormy night just like this, a young woman died in an accident right there. They say she was on her way home, but her car lost control and plunged into the ravine. Ever since then, people have occasionally seen the figure of a woman standing by the side of the road on stormy nights, waving for a ride. And the words she usually says are exactly, "Stop before it's too late." Hearing this, the coffee cup in my hand slipped and shattered on the floor. My whole body trembled as an overwhelming sense of terror gripped my mind. The cold water droplets on the truck seat suddenly became vivid in my memory, like a chilling warning from the other side. That night, I didn't dare to sleep. The image of the woman with her deep black eyes and her cold words haunted me. I knew I had encountered something beyond human comprehension. And even now, whenever it rains heavily, I still don't dare to drive alone on that national highway. The dried bloodstains from years ago have now become a horrifying memory that I will never be able to forget. Countless times I had driven this interstate. And every time, around the dead of night, when the world seemed to have fallen asleep, I would see that truck. An old pickup, its faded silver paint dulled by years, its bed piled high with a haphazard collection of items tied down with fraying ropes. The strange thing was, it always appeared behind my truck, maintaining a certain distance, and its headlights would flicker eerily as if trying to signal something. At first, I thought it was just some driver with peculiar habits. But then, the repeated coincidence started to bother me. Every single time as we approached the deserted intersection nestled in the dense pine forest, the pickup would honk 3 short times and then vanish, as if it dissolved into the thin night air. I had tried speeding up or slowing down several times to get a closer look, but the truck always maintained the same distance, and then inexplicably disappeared. Tonight was no exception. The old pickup appeared in my rearview mirror again, its headlights flashing ghost-like. A light drizzle made visibility even worse, the tall trees lining both sides of the road looming dark and menacing like lurking shadows. As I neared the familiar intersection, I waited with bated breath. True to form, the pickup honked 3 times, beep, 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 echoing in the still night, then slowly faded, dissolving into the darkness. But tonight, an idea suddenly flashed in my mind. Curiosity had won over fear. Why did that truck always disappear at this exact intersection? Why did it honk 3 times? Could it be, was something trying to warn me? I decided to hit the brakes, bringing my truck to a stop right before the intersection. My heart pounded in my chest, an indescribable sense of unease spreading through my body. The night was silent, save for the gentle patter of rain and the soft whisper of wind through the trees. I strained my eyes, peering into the darkness around me, trying to find any trace of the strange pickup, but there was nothing. Just then, the roar of an engine shattered the quiet night. From the right, out of the dense woods, a car sped out at an incredible speed. Its headlights blazed, shining directly into my eyes. I jumped, my heart nearly stopping. If I hadn't stopped just now, a terrible accident would have surely happened. The car swerved past the front of my truck, missing me by mere inches. The screech of tires pierced the air and then fell silent, replaced by a loud crash and the sound of breaking metal echoing from the distance. I sat motionless in the cabin, cold sweat pouring down my body. The shock left me unable to move. It took a while before I regained my senses and realized I had just narrowly escaped a horrific accident. An overwhelming feeling of gratitude washed over me. It was that strange pickup with its 3 warning honks that had saved my life. I quickly started the engine, turning around to look for the pickup. I wanted to thank the mysterious driver who had silently protected me throughout the journey. But there was no sign of the pickup. The road behind me was completely empty, only the darkness and the waterlogged trees remained. I drove slowly along the road, trying to find any sign, but it was in vain. The truck had vanished completely, as if it had never existed. When I reached the small town nearby, I pulled into a late-night diner where a few locals were sitting and drinking coffee. I recounted the strange story I had just experienced, hoping someone could offer an explanation. An old man sitting in the corner of the diner, his hair snow-white and his face full of wrinkles, listened intently to my story. When I finished, he slowly placed his coffee cup on the table, his eyes filled with sadness. "You said it was an old pickup truck with flickering headlights that honked 3 times before that intersection, didn't you?" the old man asked in a hoarse voice. I nodded, surprised that he seemed to know about it. "It's been many years," the old man sighed. "About 15 years ago, a young man driving that exact kind of pickup truck had an accident and died right at that intersection. It was raining hard that night, just like tonight. They say his truck was hit by another car that came speeding out of the woods. Ever since then, many drivers on this route, especially on stormy nights, have occasionally seen an old pickup truck appear. They say it usually flashes its lights and honks right before there's danger. People believe it's the spirit of that unfortunate driver, still trying to warn others so no one else has to share his fate." Hearing the old man's words, I couldn't help but shiver. All the strange coincidences, the 3 warning honks, and the mysterious disappearance of the pickup truck. It all fit the story the old man had just told. I suddenly understood that I had just been saved by a ghost. A spirit still lingering on that fateful road, silently protecting travelers in the dead of night. From that day on, whenever I drive through that intersection, I always feel a deep sense of gratitude and respect. I know that somewhere in the darkness, there's still a pair of eyes watching, a silent warning from a traveler who vanished in the night. The man who hired me to transport this shipment had a peculiar appearance. His face was pale, and his eyes were small and sunken like 2 bottomless wells. He gave me a thick envelope of cash, more than double the market rate, but along with it came conditions that made me uneasy. Absolutely no opening the trailer. Absolutely no stopping along the way, not even for a minute. And the delivery had to be made to the designated location by 6 a.m. I'd been a truck driver for over 20 years, and I'd encountered all sorts of clients and strange cargo. But this was the first time I'd taken on a job with such strict and mysterious requirements. However, the amount he was paying was too tempting, and I was in a lot of debt. With a click of my tongue, I agreed. The truck sped through the night. The interstate was deserted, with only my headlights illuminating the road ahead. At first, everything was fine. The steady rumble of the engine, the wind whistling outside the cabin, and the light drizzle that had started to fall. I tried to focus on driving, not thinking about the mysterious cargo in the back. But then, when the clock struck exactly midnight, I started hearing strange sounds. They were coming from the trailer, at first just faint, indistinguishable noises. But as the night wore on, when the darkness became quieter and the rain started to fall harder, those sounds became clearer and more disturbing. A scratching. It sounded like sharp claws scraping fiercely against metal. Then heavy, labored breathing, as if a massive creature was struggling in a confined space. And most terrifying of all were the whispers, tiny, bizarre sounds like someone muttering nonsense or perhaps uttering venomous curses. With each passing hour, the sounds grew more intense. The scratching sounded like it wanted to tear through the metal shell, the breathing became more rapid and pained, and the whispers rose and fell, sometimes loud, sometimes soft, sometimes near, sometimes far, making me feel like hundreds of voices were surrounding me. Curiosity and fear warred within me. I tried to ignore them, telling myself it was just the wind, or maybe the cargo inside had shifted. But the sounds were too real, too vivid for me to dismiss them from my mind. Around 3 in the morning, when the rain was pouring down like a waterfall and the night enveloped everything in a thick, inky blackness, curiosity finally won over fear. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to know what was inside that trailer. Finding a secluded spot on the side of the road, I pulled over. My heart pounded like it wanted to jump out of my chest. I grabbed my flashlight, got out of the truck, and headed towards the trailer. The cold, metallic smell and the scent of mildew filled my nostrils. My hands trembled as I unlatched the doors. A clunk echoed in the still night. I slowly pulled open the trailer doors. Thick darkness enveloped everything inside. I shone my flashlight in. The weak beam only allowed me to see packages covered in black tarpaulin. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. But the sounds, they continued, clearer than ever now that the doors were open. The scratching, the heavy breathing, the whispers, they seemed to surround me from all sides. I shone my flashlight deeper into the trailer, trying to find the source of the sounds. And then I saw it. In the far corner of the trailer, something was moving. A strange, shapeless dark mass, writhing and emitting those bizarre sounds. I stood frozen in place, unable to believe my eyes. What was it? An animal? A person? Or something else? Suddenly, a brilliant red light flashed before my eyes. It was so fast I didn't even have time to react. What was that light? Where did it come from? And that's the last thing I remember. When I woke up, the first rays of dawn were beginning to appear on the horizon. I was still sitting in the cabin of my truck, but something was wrong. The truck was no longer on the interstate. It was parked in the middle of a dense forest, tall trees surrounding it, blocking out all the light. There was no road ahead, behind, or in any other direction. Only trees and shadows. I tried to recall what had happened, but my mind was a hazy blank. I remembered stopping the truck, opening the trailer, and then the red light. What happened after that? I couldn't remember. I looked around. My truck was completely intact. The trailer doors were still closed. I quickly got out and ran to the back to check. The latches were still secured, with no signs of tampering. I opened the trailer doors again. Inside were still the packages covered in black tarpaulin. But this time there were no sounds at all. A terrifying silence enveloped everything. I was utterly bewildered. Where was I? What had happened? What was that red light? And those strange sounds? Were they real or just hallucinations from exhaustion? I tried to find my way out of the forest, but the deeper I went, the more lost and desperate I felt. There were no signs of human life, no paths, only trees and shadows surrounding me. I was lost, completely lost in an unnamed forest with no idea how I had gotten there. Was this how my last delivery was going to end? I didn't know what to do next. Fear and confusion overwhelmed me, and I felt like I was trapped in a never-ending nightmare. Was someone waiting for me at the edge of this forest? Or would I be stuck here forever, in this desolate and terrifying place? The answer remained unknown, and the eerie silence of the forest only amplified the unease in my heart. The storm unleashed its full fury upon the road. Rain poured down relentlessly, and the wind howled like a wounded beast. My truck swayed on the highway, and my eyelids felt heavy after more than a dozen hours of continuous driving. The weak headlights barely illuminated the short stretch of road ahead. Everything around was blurry and menacing. Finally, I couldn't fight the overwhelming drowsiness any longer. Spotting a sign for a roadside rest area, I pulled in. The rest stop was eerily deserted. Only a few other trucks were parked haphazardly, all silent, without a soul in sight. Everyone must have been sound asleep in their cabins. I turned off the engine, stretched to relieve the stiffness, and got out of the truck. The biting cold wind slapped my face, carrying moisture and the smell of earth. I decided to go into the restroom to splash some water on my face and wake myself up. Stepping inside, the weak fluorescent light cast a sickly glow on the cold, tiled walls. Everything was suspiciously clean, without a trace of life. After washing my face, I felt a little more alert. I pushed the door open to step back outside, and a wave of terror washed over me. My truck was gone. I rubbed my eyes, not believing what I was seeing. It had been right here just moments ago, right in front of the restroom door. How could it have vanished so quickly? I looked around. The other trucks were still there, but the rest stop. The rest stop was also gone. No building, no vending machines, no signs. Only an empty, waterlogged patch of land under the dim street lights. Panic seized me, and I rushed out towards where the highway should have been. But even the road was gone. In its place was a pitch-black expanse, without a single light, without a sign of life. I stood frozen in the darkness, feeling like I had been transported to a completely alien place. I started walking, trying to find any sign of life. The rain continued to fall heavily, stinging my face with its icy touch. Darkness enveloped everything. Only the heavy sound of my footsteps echoed in the silent space. After walking quite a distance, I suddenly saw a faint light ahead. A glimmer of hope sparked within me, and I hurried towards it. As I got closer, I realized it was a truck parked on the side of the road. It looked strangely familiar. As I approached even closer, my heart stopped. It was my truck. The driver's side door was slightly ajar. I crept closer, peering inside. And then I saw myself, sound asleep in the driver's seat. My face was contorted with fatigue, my breathing steady and even. I stood frozen in place, unable to believe my eyes. It was me. But how could that be? I was standing here outside the truck, so who was sleeping inside? Or was that also me? A cold shiver ran down my spine. I felt like I was falling into a bizarre loop, a distorted reality from which I couldn't escape. I tried to shake the truck door, calling out to the person inside, but there was no response. I backed away, staring at the truck. The rain continued to fall, the wind still howled. Around me, only darkness and a terrifying silence remained. I didn't know where I was, what was happening, or how to escape this deadly cycle. All I knew was that tonight I was trapped in a nightmare with no way out. And perhaps I would be forever imprisoned in this place, repeating the horrifying moment of seeing myself sound asleep in a world I no longer understood.